We welcome you to our Pragati Vichar Literature Festival. Today we have gathered here for one of a kind 24 hours authors marathon. And today we have with us Nishtha Anand. Nishtha Anand is an author of the book called Awakening the Rainmaker, which talks about gender equality at the workplace and in life for individuals and organizations. Besides that, she is a strategy professional and has done her MBA from Indian Institute of Foreign Trade and a Delhi University gold medalist. We are so honored to have you here, ma'am, today. Okay, so today we will be talking about Awakening the Rainmaker, which is also the title of the book. So tell us something about your book, ma'am. We would love to know about the book.
Sure. So the genesis of the book came from when I started my career in investment banking, and this term rainmaker was added to my vocabulary. These are usually leaders who are doing very well in the organization, are handling very meaty portfolios. But I saw that there were not many female rainmakers around me. And later I switched to the field of strategy and got exposure to multiple business lines. But there again, I would be the only woman in the boardroom often, and most of the women would be handling operational roles like ops, HR, legal, or were stuck in junior to mid roles. So that itch was always somewhere in me. Then 3 years back, I was pregnant with my first child. My husband and I were happy to know that. But I was surprised that though both of us were becoming parents, but only I was getting the advice that maybe you should take a break to focus on your pregnancy and how will you manage a career and a child along. And this surprised me. And I ended up reading a lot on the topic. And what I saw was that not much was written for Indian women, taking into mind our peculiar realities of treading multiple paths with parents, in-laws, children, spouse, partner. That's when the genesis for this book came to me, that I wanted to write something for the Indian women, so that it's not always what a woman needs to do, but what she should expect from people around her also, be it her office or be it her home, in order to continue with her career uninterrupted by personal milestones of marriage and motherhood. And thus was born Awakening the Rainmaker as a practical guide for women to pursue their ambitions and passions free of any guilt.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Um, and I want to ask one thing, that how did you come up with the idea? I mean, you've been telling me that you were the only woman in the boardroom, right? So I can get an idea that how did it come to your mind to write something about it, but I mean, you've written a whole book. So did something happen, or the surroundings of of your life, did something happen to you so that you wrote a book on it?
No, so I basically, what motivated me to write the book was that I thought that somebody who is and I would say who's as exposed as me, because I started my career with investment banking and I worked in the field of strategy across, based out of Singapore, looking at operations in Hong Kong, Australia as well. And I thought, wow, somebody who has as much exposure as me was also very conscious around the time of my pregnancy, because there were doubts in my mind that, will people think that I'm not as efficient in working just because I'm pregnant? Or how will I really manage the stakeholders around me? It made me wonder what would be the situation with scores of women
Yeah.
who do not have as much exposure. They would also feel so conscious about these things. That's when writing this book came to me, that I just didn't want to solve the problem for myself, but I wanted to put out a solution for all the women around me so that it can help them. And also, I wanted, that our next generation of children should not be facing the challenges which we have faced.
Yeah,
It needs to be a better world for them. And why wait till
absolutely.
60 years of age to do that? Do it now.
Yeah. Amazing, amazing, ma'am. So I want to ask one thing, that what is the favorite chapter of your book? I mean, the chapter that you have, that you've always wanted to write, about. So what is your favorite chapter?
Well, I would say my favorite chapter from the book is Call by Leadership, because in the course of writing this book, I interacted with some phenomenal women in India, some of them in the Fortune and Forbes 50 most powerful women in business. And I tried to cover as many fields as possible, like CEOs, CMOs, entrepreneurs, digital influencers, content creators, sports people, women from the field of science and technology. There's a Padma Shri physicist, for instance, I've interviewed. So across all these conversations, Nancy, the one common theme that came across was, for any change to happen, the endorsement by leadership is very important. If the leadership team is invested into the agenda, the
Yeah.
change is very quick to happen. For instance, my interview with Zia Modi, who has been the most powerful woman in business in India for over a decade now, and the founder of AZB and Partners. So her quote, which is also on the back cover of my book, really stuck with me. She says that if the tone of the leadership is serious enough when it comes to diversity and inclusion, it is
Mhm.
very easy for the broader gender diversity and inclusion to cascade throughout the organization. And that really stuck well with me. All these women who I've interviewed are so hands on when it comes to gender diversity and inclusion that it shows in their organizations as well. Like I gave you the example of Zia Modi. Her law firm has close to 37% senior partners. That is because she really takes this agenda seriously. Or when I did all the reading for the purpose of writing the book, there's this uh, 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 a huge blue chip company by the name of, so for instance, a Salesforce and a Sodexo. There again, the senior leadership, the women representation at senior levels is closer to 40-50%, because the CEOs and the founders of these companies are very serious about the agenda of DNI. So I feel it's important for the leadership to be invested in this. It makes life much easier. For
Yeah.
instance, ICICI Bank back in the 80s was very invested into gender diversity. You hear all these names, Kalpana Moorparia, Renuka Ramnathan, all these women started were a part of ICICI Bank at some point or the other. It was known to be the CEO factory of women back then. That is because their then chairperson, KV Kamath, was invested into mentoring the younger talent. And that's very important.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I mean, to be very honest, I'm just gonna read your book, and I'm just gonna buy it right now. And the things you've been, saying, it really, it really is getting me, and I really would like to, get motivated and do better in life. So thank you so much, ma'am. Okay, so, ma'am,
I'll be very happy. In fact, Nancy, this book,
yes, ma'am, you were saying.
no, I was just telling you, I thought I'll just share a good news too. So it's been just a week since we launched the book, and it's already a bestseller in its category on Amazon.
Yes, I've
And it
searched.
has opened
Yeah.
up to some tremendous response. It's opened up to some tremendous response. And my aim with the book is that it should reach as many people as possible so that it can create a wave of change. So I
Yes,
hope it
and it
motivates
will,
you to.
and it has been creating a way, and it will.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
So, as per a KPMG study, only 22% women feel that they are taught the value of self confidence as children. What problems does this create in the long run? And how can parents and teachers encourage future female leaders?
So this is actually a very important part of the book, because I start the book with upbringing, because I noticed that only in India hardly 15 to 20% women are working in the workforce. So as a species, as women, as a species in India, for us to be respected, it's very important that even the ones who have chosen to stay at home
Yeah.
As wives or as mothers, it's important that they are also respected. So hence I start the book with the upbringing stage of things, that how do we make sure that we are raising assertive daughters and sons. And I was surprised even when I came across this KPMG study that only 22% women feel that they are taught the value of self confidence as children. And Nancy, you won't believe it. These upbringing, these chinks in upbringing, that's what I call them, they impact our long-term career as well. Because of the values we are taught as children,
Yeah.
it really
Absolutely.
determines the way we take decisions as we grow up. Like
Yeah.
most women, for instance, shy away from taking risks. They shy away
Yeah.
from asking for promotions
Yeah.
or bonuses. They also suffer from imposter syndrome, is a very common term you may have heard too. That
Yeah.
women always
Insecurities and
often suffer
all.
from.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. They always feel, oh, I have been given this huge
Yeah.
project. Will I be able to do it? They always have
Yes.
that question mark
Yes.
in their mind. So this has a big bearing on women reaching to senior leadership positions, because at the end of the day, trusting yourself and self-confidence is a very important trait as a
It is
leader.
the
Hard work
most
and
important.
respect are
Yeah.
also important, but self-confidence is also very important.
Yeah.
So I think the solution to this, for parents to be able to create, to help their girls reach out to leadership positions, is to start with operate with a gender neutral upbringing. Be it your daughter or your son, you
The
have to
same way.
be
Yeah.
open towards their passions, their, let them pursue what they want to pursue. Even it's true for the sons also. Like, don't limit your son also, because just because he's a boy, he needs to go into, certain kind of professions only. If let's say your sons are interested in performance arts or in any other profession which is not associated with the boy, let them do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Similarly for girls, let them pursue as per their passion, and they will become the best of what they can be if you just give them little bit of space.
At last, I just want to add one quote that let them be what they want to be, right? So,
Yeah.
absolutely, ma'am, I am agreeing with you in every aspect. Ma'am, can you elaborate more on conscious and unconscious gender biases? How do these show up in different fields, whether it's corporate, sports, STEM, entrepreneurship?
So you're right. So conscious and unconscious biases is forms again a major part of my book as well, because these biases, especially the unconscious bias, it's often like jealousy. It is there, but we don't want to admit of it, or we don't want to feel that, oh, we are operating from a position of bias. So it's very important to identify these biases. For instance, often as women in the corporate world, like you may have been given a feedback at times saying that you're not very good at networking. You have to, maybe do a better networking, or your management style is very aggressive. It should be more participative and more docile. Well, often women, or even if men are getting similar feedbacks, we need to first see whether this feedback is genuinely given to us or it is coming from a position of bias. Because
Yeah.
many a times people feel that women need to be more friendly or more participative, but that's not the norm. If your natural style is being assertive and your work is not getting affected by that, you are getting actual in terms of, you're getting results for your team, then continue with whatever is working for you. You don't have to act on every feedback that is given to you. So whenever any feedback is given to you, just step back and analyze whether it is coming
Yeah.
from a position of bias or not.
Yeah.
Because at times the person does not even consciously have that bias. They may be operating from that unconscious bias, like it's at the back of their mind. For
Yeah.
instance, this interview that I did with Dr. Rohini Golbore, who's the Padma Shri, she was awarded the Padma Shri in 2019 in physics. And she mentioned to me, she's a brilliant scientist, of course, and has worked all over the world. And in her initial years, she was given the feedback, like, certain comments like, why do you want to do PhD in abroad? You can do it in India also.
Mhm.
Or the best bet for you is, if you can get a teaching job in India. Now she says, and she was very sweet in saying that, maybe all this feedback was given to me somewhere taking into account my ability, maybe, but somewhere my gender did play a role in it.
Yeah,
Because again, you don't see
absolutely.
many women scientists, right? And she was as a scientist, she was there. And she says, had I taken these comments to my heart, it may have stalled my career. But she was determined, and she
Yeah,
continued on her path. But she did realize that maybe these statements were coming from a position of bias. So it's very important that you know the difference between these biases, like genuine feedback and biases,
yeah,
and then decide your course of future action. And here the solution, Nancy, is for organizations especially to do a de-bias drive. Like, it's very important for every organization that you have those training modules right from junior management levels to mid management and senior management levels, so that employees know and are aware if they have any biases, and these biases should not affect their decision making. At least that awareness will ensure that.
yeah. And actually, ma'am, when I asked you the previous question, you've answered that upbringing plays a major role, right? And
Right.
I want to add in this also the in in our unconscious mind, upbringing is still there, that we've been taught that women should be poised and they should be nice and kind, and they should talk like this, right? And when they don't see it, right, when a
Right.
woman is bold and she's talking her mind, they just can't get it. They just say that you can't say that, you are a girl or you're a woman. So I think upbringing plays a major role. Yeah, in this also.
You're right. That is always the starting point. You're completely bang on. As organization de-bias drive, and as families, as parents, as teachers, it's very important that you do the gender neutral upbringing and approach towards all
Yeah,
your kids or students.
absolutely, ma'am. Ma'am, I want to ask one question, that many women eventually end up choosing motherhood over career. How can organizations prevent this from happening?
Right. I think the most important bit, because that is the issue with India, that many women enter the workforce. It's around close to over 40% who enter the workforce, but only 20% remain in the workforce by the time they reach mid management levels, and only up to 10-11% reach the senior management level. And you'll be surprised, Nancy, less than 3% women reach the C suite levels in India. Like the top Nifty 50 companies in India, there is only one woman CEO. Top 100 companies in India, only five women CEOs. So the numbers are really abysmal here, which
Yeah,
means that many women are leaking out of the corporate ecosystem around the mid management levels. And that coincides with women becoming mothers when they have to make that choice. And the most effective way to cater to that, which also came across in all my interactions that I had, some of the things that I really liked, for instance, my conversation with Naiya. She's the founder and CEO of Baby Chakra. And they have a very interesting system wherein for every manager in the organization, they have an objective key performance indicator related to how many of your, returning mothers were you able to retain in the system. So it is objectively evaluated for every manager. Then they also take personal interest in it. And they also have measures like, for instance, if a woman is on a maternity leave. Now, 6 months is a long period of time, right?
yeah,
So what they do is right around, let's say, fifth month of your leave, they will inviting the woman on, like small team calls, just giving her an update what's happening, so that she doesn't feel alienated at work.
yeah,
And when she finally joins after the maternity leave is over, the HR sort of looks after the woman for at least a period of a month. They talk to her, they ask her if she's feeling emotionally overwhelmed, on joining the work. So all those support measures are there so that she doesn't feel alienated
Yeah.
from her work of place, because that's the important. During the pregnancy, most people are very supportive, but
Mhm.
it's the integration back into the work which leads to women at times feeling that we are not operating as efficiently as we used to, or they feel
Yeah.
that we are not being valued at our place of work. Like
Mhm.
my conversation with Sukleen Aneja, she is the chief marketing officer for Reckitt Benckiser. In
Okay.
fact, she recently joined as the CEO at the MyGlam Group. So she also mentioned that back when she was the CMO at RB, what she
Mhm.
would do, any woman who's coming back from the maternity leave, she would give her the most important assignment, like the most visibility birth assignment. Because what happens, even you may have seen this, many women after they join from maternity, they are given like smaller assignments कि transition assignments कि let her take it light. So
Yeah.
Suklina has a very interesting viewpoint. She's like, no, I want to show the confidence in that woman, that though you're back from maternity, you can handle the most prestigious of projects, and
Yeah.
that gives so much satisfaction and confidence
Yeah.
to that woman or
That I
men,
still have it in me. Yeah.
that I still have it in me. And this option of taking help, like if a woman wants to take a light project after coming from maternity leave, you should ask that woman. The choice should be with the woman,
Yeah.
rather than you feeling ki, oh,
Mhm.
let us give her a light project. Ask her what she wants. So that is very important. And here
Absolutely.
again, closing this thought, like Sonia Gupta, the managing director at Accenture, she coined a very interesting concept here, like a life transition model. She's like, most organizations should have something known as a life transition model, wherein you can help your employees, be it men or women, who are going through maternity, children's education, like your 10th and 12th exams, or aging parents. Even men may have those commitments, right? So across all these stages, she's like, an organization should have a flexible approach. Let employees plan their own leaves, give them the flexibility. Trust that people are professional enough. As long as their work is not getting affected, let them plan their leaves in a
Yeah.
way, the way they need them. And
Mhm.
that will give them the confidence that, okay, our organization does value us, and they will stay long term with it. So these were very interesting thoughts which can help women to stay in the corporate life if they choose to, irrespective of their motherhood milestones.
Absolutely, ma'am. Do you see an economic benefit to gender inclusion beyond it being the right thing to do?
Of course, yeah, the answer is a resounding yes here. In fact, I dedicated a whole chapter called The Business Case for Women in the book as well. That gender inclusion is not just the right thing to do, but it makes a lot of economic sense for every organization and for India as a nation. Like there's a report which says that if women were to participate in the labor force as effectively, around $770 billion USD can be added into India's GDP by 2025. So that is like just huge numbers of potential which we are not utilizing currently. And there are three legs to it. First of all, of course, I feel that any organization which is more diverse can have better financial performance. There are studies which have shown that the company which is more diverse at the leadership level is able to perform better when it comes to net profit, when it comes to operating margins, etc. Like Sodexo did this study where they analyzed data over, I think, across 50 countries. They interviewed around 70,000 managers, and they found out that a gender ratio in the range of 40 to 60% can help an organization perform better on multiple parameters like operating margin, profitability, safety, etc. So that is very important. Second
Yeah.
of all, I feel any organization which is more diverse enjoys a better brand value. Like your customers, your suppliers, your entire value chain is able to look up to you with respect, and you are able to do business more easily.
Yeah.
For instance, Procter and Gamble. which always with its advertisements like Ariel share the load, or Pampers it takes two, like the socially responsible advertising and messaging that it does. You and I are able to relate more to their brands as customers.
Yeah. Hmm.
Or for instance, Goldman Sachs in 2020, they said that in the US and Europe, they will not take to IPO any company which does not have a female board member. If your board is all male, they will not represent you for IPOs. Now that is one of the largest banks in the world. So statements like these show that even your value chain is like your stakeholders are also respecting diversity.
Yeah.
So any diverse
Mhm.
organization is able to get in, channel partners more easily because they feel that this organization is more inclusive.
Yeah.
And lastly, if you are a more diverse organization, then you're able to find the talent more easily. In today's world, the fight for talent has become very tough, so any diverse organization will be able to get in top-notch quality talent. For instance, Lizzie Chapman's Zest Money, who I interviewed for the book as well. Now they are a founding team where two of the founders are women and one of them is a man. And Lizzie said, I can undoubtedly say that we are successful because we are diverse.
Yeah.
And she says that we are able to find talent much more easily, especially all the women talent who are so talented, educated, experienced. And they say that they look at Zest Money as a place where they can make a career for life because they see their senior leadership numbers are so diverse and well distributed. So the benefits of being a diverse organization are far too many to ignore today.
Absolutely. Diversity is very important, ma'am. Even the organization that I am associated with, I mean, my whole team is female, and sometimes we feel that I mean, it is adding two or three men also. And sometimes we feel that we are diverse and the ideas come out very, very strong. And diversification has just changed the game for the whole team. So I absolutely agree with you.
That is so true.
Ma'am, men are the majority in every field. Do they care? How can they contribute to a gender inclusive culture?
Well, that's very important. In fact, it takes two to bring about a change. So men are as important in helping to bring out this change. And the good news is that today's men are aware about it and they want to contribute towards it because they see it, as husbands, they see their wives trying to have a career. As fathers, they are more invested into their daughters' education and they're more invested into their achievements. So that has made them more conscious as colleagues as well. So that is a very welcome change and a great sense of change that has come up, at least in urban India to start with. Like, many of these conversations that I had, for instance, Zia Modi or a Renu Sood Karnad, they were like, when we see men in our organizations, and even if there is a little bit of bias that is there, they have these bespoke conversations with them. For instance, Renu Sood Karnad mentioned about this very interesting conversation she had with one of her branch managers who would not hire women, and she knew that his daughter is like an engineer and is going to enter the workforce. So she said, okay, so is she joining as a receptionist at one of the firms? And he was like, what are you saying? She's an engineer, she will join one of the IT firms. And she's like, similarly, every girl that applies to our organization also has those dreams, has those qualifications. So you should give them a chance and not be biased because of their gender. And this man it just changed his worldview altogether. And she says, I saw great change in the numbers of his branch. And even many years later, he still remembers this conversation. So I think men become more invested into gender diversity and inclusion when they see it in their personal life as well. So that is one. And also there are so many policies in organizations that are getting implemented, be it your paternity leave, where men are also being offered leave when they become fathers, which I think is very important, because that is when you get invested into raising your child and you see the
Yeah,
challenges associated with it, and you can be a more hands-on parent if you are
yeah,
invested from day one, and it can help
yeah.
the woman also to continue her career. So those
Hmm.
policies are coming into place. And then what I mentioned about the de-bias drive, that is another thing, that if an organization is educating their employees, is doing those trainings at every interval, then even those men would become aware that maybe I was operating from a position of bias,
Yeah,
or even if they are unable to correct the bias to start with, because these biases are very deep rooted, one or two trainings will not solve it, but at least what these trainings will do is
they
they
will be
make the person
aware.
aware of it.
Yeah.
Aware, yeah. So that when you are making a decision, you are at least aware ki, okay, hold
Is
on,
it the
I may
right
be
decision or a
getting
wrong?
biased. Let
Yeah.
me not take
Hmm.
wrong decision. So at least that awareness starts. So all these things are really helping men to step up when it comes to gender and inclusion agenda.
Thank you so much, ma'am. This was such an enlightening session. I've learned so much from you. I've never really, at first, Japleen, I guess, she was about to moderate this session, but I'm just very happy that I got the chance to moderate your session. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you,
Thank you so
Nancy. Even
much.
I had a
And
great time.
last, if you want to say something.
Well, I think just lastly, just in summary for my book, the message I would want to reach, like leave for all men and women, is question the status quo around you. If you feel that you're not living a life full, full of your potential, just question the realities around you and seek support whenever you have to. And you will be surprised by the help that you can get from people around you. Like often as women, we are always scared to seek support, or we are always, trying to be the multitasking diva, if so may I say.
Yeah.
But if you want to live a full life, you need to learn to delegate. That is very important. Take some time out for pursuing your passion as well. Of course, doing so practically. That's what I've talked about in the book also, because the Indian reality is not like you can leave your houses and do all those things. Within your realities, just try to find a solution and you will be able to find one.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.